Workers wrapping Whoppers are now making $20 an hour.
We employ about 6,000 people across the state, all the way up from Reading down to Bakersfield.
Harsh Guy is California's largest operator of Burger King restaurants. His franchise group owns 200 total fast food restaurants on the West Coast, including some Taco Bell and Popeyes locations.
My dad started 25 years ago with one Burger King in San Jose, California. I used to run it himself, worked there open to close, started building restaurants, creating jobs, and then when I came out of high school, I started working with him and worked my way through his business, through college as well, and eventually became a franchisee myself.
Grappling with California's new fast food labor law, Guy says his business is doing its best to have an open line of communication with workers.
I'll walk you over here real quick.
He showed us where he displays important signage of his workers' rights. It's in front of their workspace. He says with the new law, menu prices will likely rise at his restaurants and some closures are coming.
We did, however, close 8 restaurants last year because of profitability issues across the state, and we anticipate closing at least 6 more restaurants.
The consequences of the new law, something Guy tried to avoid. He says workers in his industry were an easy target for the powerful labor group that pushed it, the SEIU.
I think part of the reason is that we have tens of thousands of fast food restaurants across the state. Most of them, about 80% actually, are owned by single unit operators. So it's very difficult for people who own one restaurant or 2 restaurants to actually be able to have a voice and fight some of these things. And ultimately, they cut us out of the negotiations and the conversation. I learned on a Saturday morning that this was being signed on Monday morning, and when I found out about it and asked our brands and the lobbyists that have been working on their behalves how this happened, we were told that it happened was that they were all under a non-disclosure agreement and that they weren't allowed to talk about it. There were some people in the room that were representing our best interests apparently, but there were no franchisees and no employers that were actually involved in those conversations.
So when you asked, how is this happening, they basically told you, we can't really say because we use non-disclosure agreements.
I was specifically told that a non-disclosure agreement was in place and that we weren't allowed to know about it.
Who is it, under your understanding, who was it that wanted the NDAs to be signed?
I honestly am not entirely sure. I was told at one point that the governor's office was requiring NDAs. I've also been told at other points that the SEIU, I would say it's the SEIU, just because of the fact that since then they've employed in more tactics. So they're trying to pass further legislation in the cities, San Jose for example, and we are not able to sit down and actually talk to the people who are trying to pass these ordinances, nor are we able to discuss with the city council members as to what they're being asked to introduce.
You don't want to have to hire lobbyists and lawyers, but you have, right? I mean, recently because of this. Yes. I mean, is that the direction operators have to go in at this point, is to get more engaged with the legislature to push back against other groups, basically?
Absolutely. I mean, if I have to pay lobbyists to do this work on my behalf and speak on our behalf, because those are the people that are being led into these conversations, that's less money that could be going towards programs for my employees. That's less money that I could be paying my employees. That's less vacation time that we could be giving our team members and our workers. So we don't want to have to deal with that. We want to work hand in hand with our workers. We want to have sit-downs with them directly, and we want to be able to make their lives better and improve their working conditions by sitting with them.
Why does SEIU keep putting workers who have been wronged at the forefront of this? I mean, how would you respond to what they claim is an industry that might have this pervasiveness of mistreating its workers? Yeah,
look, I think that unfortunate issues happen in every industry, and they should absolutely be addressed head on. And we should be able to sit down with those employees and those workers and figure out the solutions to those problems ourselves.
How do you describe your relationship with your employees?
Our employees are the backbone of our business, and we're going to do everything in our power to improve our relationships with them. Over the last several years, we've implemented a lot of different things in our organization. For example, I have a couple of people in my office that constantly monitor breaks, time clock adjustments, and their job is to just make sure that people are taking their breaks that they're entitled to. We have safety programs in place now, so if somebody gets a cut, somebody falls, we have programs to ensure that they're taken care of and that they're taken to the right clinics and they get the medical attention and the care that they need. But at the same time, it's going to be important for us as operators to meet with our employees more often, for them to get to know who we are, and for us to ensure that we have an open door policy. They should be able to come and tell us whatever they need, to make their lives better.
Now, Guy told us the use of artificial intelligence and automation are conversations that are absolutely happening within his restaurant group. We are still waiting to hear back from the SEIU on what exactly it's trying to accomplish at the local level that could further impact those restaurants.
Thanks. And there are still many unanswered questions for small business owners.
Yeah, specifically those who sell snacks such as pretzel stands, boba tea, cinnamon buns, and ice cream. Last week, we first brought you the story of a Handel's ice cream franchisee. She says only 3 of her employees are full-time workers. The rest are high school and college-age students working just a few hours at a time. She told us the SEIU labor group and the lawmaker who wrote the bill told her it was not their intent to include businesses like hers. So that's created some confusion. She had a meeting with the governor's office today, and we caught up with her right after that.
The main take in speaking with the legislative secretary was, we're not in, we're not out, and the deciding factor seems to be the Fast Food Council. She did mention that the governor's office appointed the Fast Food Council, and it's up to them to make the decision, along with the Department of Industrial Relations.
Where do you go from here?
That's the $1 million question, probably literally, that we all want to know. Today's April 1st. The implementation of the bill is today. Whether or not we stay at 16 or go to the 20, and it's still as ambiguous as it was when I started this 5 months ago.
Now, the Fast Food Council does not have its next meeting scheduled. Governor Newsom's office has told us the courts could also end up determining who's exempt from this law with potential future lawsuits.